Property taxes in Texas are out of control because of two reasons. Number one, politicians are spending your money out the wazoo. And number two, the lines are not drawn in a fair and equal way. I want to explain what you can do to get these things under control, how to protest, and how you can affect your property taxes and drive your tax bill down. At its core, our property taxes are increasing because our cities and our county and our school districts are spending our money, and we've got to keep them under control or we're going to continue to see this problem go up and up and up. All of the legislation that we've seen, by and large, just transfers the burden of the expense from your front pocket to your back pocket. They're not eliminating any property taxes as long as they keep spending your money. So the first point of focus needs to be at our local elected officials, helping keep our budgets in control so that they don't increase the tax rate. And we tell them they've got to quit playing games with our tax rates, because they'll tell you that your taxes are going down because your tax rate's going down. All the while, me and you know that's not true, because your property value goes up and your tax bill goes up. And that's where I really want to focus the rest of this video on. Next time the Central Appraisal District in your county sends you a value notice and says your house is worth a certain value, they also give you the opportunity to protest that value so that you can get the opportunity to drive the value down, and that will directly impact your tax bill. Protesting your property tax value consists of two main steps. The first step is to file your intent to protest. All you have to do is get your value notice, turn it over, fill it out, and send it back to the appraisal district. This lets them know that you are not happy with their value and you intend to negotiate the value down. If you didn't get a value notice in the mail, you can just write on a sheet of paper that I protest my property tax value at your street address on the basis of number one, market value, and number two, unequal. And then you leave your contact information, send that in, and that satisfies the intent to protest. And really, it establishes a new deadline for you. Now you don't have to worry about the protest filing deadline. Whenever they give you a hearing date, think of that not as the target date, but as your deadline date to negotiate the value down. Next, I'm going to get into exactly how you'll negotiate the value down, what evidence you need. I'm going to go from A to Z. Here we go. Your objective in negotiating the value down is to prove what the value of your property was on January 1st of this year. Now, you may have an easy win under your belt if you recently bought your property. If you bought your property after January 1st of last year, then all you have to do is submit your sales documents, your settlement statement, or appraisal if you had a refinance, showing them what the value of your property was or what the purchase price of your property was. They'll take that as an easy win in most cases, stamp it done, and you're done. If your value is already below what you purchased it for, then they consider you a winner already, as unfair as the system might be, but that's your easy win. If you don't have that option, then what we're going to do is talk about an offensive and a defensive approach. After you file your intent to protest, you are legally entitled to get a copy of the evidence that the appraisal district has and they intend to use in your protest hearing. My goal is to avoid the protest hearing altogether, but getting this information in advance stacks the deck in your favor. By law, the appraisal district has the burden of proof to provide evidence to substantiate the value that they're proposing, and if they can't justify the value they're proposing, the tax code says you automatically win. Most counties provide an online portal so that you can request the evidence through their website. If they don't, you can submit an official request in writing. When they provide that evidence, you'll find that the basis of their argument is going to be comparable sales. These are sales of nearby properties that have sold recently that they're comparing to your property. The burden of proof is on them to substantiate the value that they're proposing. And if they don't substantiate that value with evidence, you automatically win. My first and most exciting strategy, the strategy I love more than anything else, is to take the comparables that they're going to use against me in a hearing, and I turn and ask a local realtor to provide full MLS reports on each property they're going to use against me. I compare the comps from the realtor to the comps that they are providing, and I look for the information that the appraisal district leaves out. Oftentimes, the information in the full MLS reports provided by the realtor provides all the evidence you need to poke holes in their evidence or to justify a reduced value. In addition to poking holes in the appraisal district's evidence, you want to arm yourself with your own evidence. And for this, again, I would turn to a realtor and I would ask them for comparable sales to justify a lower value than what the appraisal district is proposing. Those comps can be dated all the way back to January 1st of the previous year. After you get those comparable sales, you analyze them, try to make some common sense adjustments for differences in the square footage of your property compared to the square footage of the comparable sales. This gives you a nice foundation for an offensive approach. Another factor you can use to your advantage is the fact that the appraisal district hasn't seen the inside of your house. Chances are the appraiser that you're going to be arguing against hasn't thought more than 5 minutes about your specific property until your actual hearing date or until they're analyzing the evidence on your property. So I like to use this to my advantage. I'll go around and drive to look at all the comparable sales. I'll look at condition issues and I will analyze the condition of my own property and provide evidence that they would never have access to otherwise. My first step is to show them that my house is not as pretty and glamorous as they think it is. I'll document the condition of my property by taking photos and getting contractor repairs of repair issues in my house. Now, it's really important to go ahead and take that extra step to get the repair estimates, because if you just show them photos, which is admissible, effective evidence that they're not going to have access to, this stacks the deck in your favor. But if you don't take the extra step to get a contractor estimate, then you're leaving it up to chance or leaving it up to them to try to assign a value to those specific repair issues. So I'll do things like take photos of cracks, look for roof shingles that are blown off, or if there are any plumbing or electrical issues, anything that is a substantial repair item or something that looks really horrible on a photograph, I'll go ahead and take photos of all those items, I'll get repair estimates, and I'll put together a nice little report that shows the cost of all of the repair items to bring my house up to a marketable condition. In most counties, they'll take that exact repair value and subtract it from the value that they're proposing to start as a basis for your negotiation reduction. You might be thinking, what am I going to do with all of this evidence? I don't want to go down to a hearing and take time out of my day. Well, guess what? In most counties, they don't want you to go to a hearing either. So you can oftentimes just drive down to the appraisal district, walk in the front doors, and talk to them about your value, show them your evidence, and they'll agree to a reduction right off the bat. In other counties, sometimes they prefer over the phone hearing or an online negotiation that would be considered an informal negotiation. I highly recommend taking advantage of this. They have every incentive in the world to agree to a reduction in this informal phase. And if you're not happy with the results, you can always show up to your hearing and do a full-blown formal hearing. Just make sure if you're doing an over-the-phone or Zoom-style virtual hearing that you produce the property owner affidavit of evidence. Without this document signed, they won't look at any of your evidence. Now, let's say you've gone through all of that trouble, you talked to the appraisal district, they didn't give you a value that you thought was fair, and you're preparing for the formal hearing. The main focus that I have here is making sure that you have copies of all of the evidence that you're going to provide and prepare a nice little elevator speech pitch for why your evidence justifies a lower value. Make sure to have a value in mind on the value that you think your house is worth, and go in with copy. I always take 5 copies of all of my documentation and get prepared to show up on time for your protest hearing and provide all 5 copies to the people sitting in the room. At that formal hearing, you're going to have somebody on the opposite end of the table that represents the appraisal district. They're going to have the appraisal district's evidence. They're going to present against you. And by the way, if you requested that evidence in advance, they can't add anything to it. They're locked in with the evidence that they provided you. You're going to submit your appeal, they're going to submit their counter appeal, and then the 3-person panel that's in the room, they will decide what they think is a fair value after weighing the evidence of the appraisal district and the evidence you provide. If you don't like the results of your formal protest hearing, you can appeal the decision by arbitration or suing the appraisal district, and both of those methods are very effective in reducing the value. One of the strategies that the professionals use to shortcut the entire process and get the biggest reduction possible while spending the least amount of time is to go through arbitration and suing the appraisal district, but they don't mess with the entire formal protest process. What they do is they take that affidavit of evidence document, fill it out, and that document will stand in your place at a formal protest hearing. If you didn't want to attend, they'll conduct the hearing and then produce the final documents and the decision of the hearing, mail that to you, and at that point, that's the necessary documentation you need to take it to the next level. Then you can spend all your time on the arbitration or suing the appraisal district to get the maximum value possible. Ultimately, you just have to decide how much time and money you want to invest in pursuing the protest on your own. There are some easier avenues that you can get some wins under your belt. If you'd like to take the easy road, you can hire a property tax consultant. In Tarrant County, I protest for people for free on single-family residential properties. If you need a referral of somebody in your area that protests, somebody that I find reputable, you can go to freetaxprotest.com/alternative, and there I list property tax consultants that I've vetted that protest in multiple counties. Another important step is to verify that your exemptions are in place. The easiest and one of the most beneficial exemptions that you can get on your homestead property, on your primary residence, is the homestead exemption. And if you find that the homestead exemption is not on your property and it should have been there, the good news is when you file that homestead exemption, you can file to have it applied 2 years retroactively, and then the tax assessor will send you a check in the mail for the amount of money you would have saved if you had it in place. Another exemption that affects a lot of taxpayers is the over 65 exemption. This one's plain and simple. It's just as it sounds. If you are 65 years or older, you may qualify for this exemption on your primary residence, and I'll take it one step further. There's another tax exemption called an over 65 deferral. This would allow you to defer paying your taxes to your heirs or to your estate. I don't recommend actually deferring the taxes. I think everybody should pay their taxes when they're due. However, it's almost like some kind of long-term disability mentality safety net. If you get the over 65 deferral and something were to happen, you couldn't make it out to your mailbox to retrieve your tax bill to pay your taxes, this safety net will ensure that the government cannot kick you out of your house due to unpaid taxes. If you'd like to dive even deeper, you can find a library of videos at freetaxprotest.com/videos or talk to the director at your local TTP branch.